Hey everybody, good afternoon and thank you so much for joining us on this stream. I'm meteorologist Alyssa alongside meteorologist Eliasen and our executive weather producer. Before we get started, we want to remind you guys, if you're watching on YouTube, please don't forget to like and subscribe on this video.
And thanks for watching us on YouTube.
Absolutely.
I'm always surprised how many folks actually click and like, you know, everybody wants to hear about the weather, and as of late, there's plenty to talk about.
There is plenty. It's a very active pattern that we're in the middle of here, and so plenty to follow along and watch with. And so you just put out a new blog post about the active weather we have coming up.
Yeah, so we've been talking about this parade of storms, and before we get there, I think it's a worthy note that so far this winter, so February is actually running colder as opposed to compared to averages in the first two winter months. So if we somehow hold on to a below average February, that would be all three winter months below average, below the average temperature, and that has not happened since 2013 and 14, which is a really cold winter. I don't think, in this day and age, we just have so few below average months now. Climate change, warmer oceans. It's really rare that to be in this sort of category is kind of startling.
That is a crazy stat. I thought it was insane that, first of all, just going back to back December to January, we hadn't done that in 5 years, 2 months below average. And look how, I mean, we hardly went below normal. We went half a degree, not even in December. So to have 3 in a row hasn't happened in just a little over 10 years.
I think a lot of folks would say, like, especially after living here the last couple winters and it's been so mild, like this winter has definitely, even though it's not that far below average, it's definitely felt cold. It's just been consistently cold. Like we haven't had, there's a stat that Eric Fisher threw out on Twitter, and I wish I had it with me now, but we haven't had a 50-degree day in quite some time, and we're almost approaching a record for the length of time without or hitting a 50. So like, usually we talk about stats on the other way. It's like a warm thing, but now it's all about the cold, and now even more so about the storms. We've got several things we're watching. We'll get into detail about what's happening tonight and early tomorrow shortly, and we'll also cover our Friday, Valentine's Day, and then another bigger, longer storm this weekend, probably the most impactful storm we've had of the stretch.
And in a way, it's nice that, you know, it's been cold because there's been a lot of chatter about wasted precipitation, and we're not really doing that when we get the moisture to work with. It's cold enough, at least we've seen some snow, certainly a little bit more than double of what we saw in the whole season last year, so we're in decent shape. Decent shape,
and I think skiers would tend to agree. It hasn't been ideal for them up north. It's been a bit icy at times, but I think it's been certainly a better year than the last two. So we show this every time we're on our parade of storms. There's our storm for later this week. There's our storm for this weekend. And then we won't even start talking about storm number 4 here yet. That's a plan for maybe next week.
We still got a couple to get through.
Yeah, but you can see, and even if you look off the Pacific Northwest, it's not like there's nothing going on. There's probably a storm 5 in there. I didn't even label it.
One right behind it.
So basically this is to say there's no sign that this pattern is going to like end anytime soon, and it does appear as though every storm that does form and crash into the West Coast ends up exiting the East Coast through New England. Like we just happen to be on the tail end of all these things and catching some form of them. This is the current satellite and radar for as of right now, and that's what's coming tonight. Looks like a pretty good amount of rain down in the southern tier there, and then some snow up in Chicago. But this is what's heading our way. It'll be here in about 12 hours. I think we got the timeline coming up next. Yep, so there we go.
Yeah, we got a good amount of moisture to work with, starting off as snow, of course, this evening. So we've also got some weather advisories in place for this as well, but starting off with the colder era. But look how quickly this transitions over to the rain to snow mix, especially rain to the south. So it's going to be quite messy for tomorrow morning. I think the biggest impact of the storm is going to be for the morning commute. And then luckily, there's a good second half of Thursday where things start to dry out much better, and it'll look quite different than the morning hours. Yeah,
so that snow comes in. It starts as snow, but it's really quick. That when that warm air comes in aloft, it comes in really fast, and so I don't think we'll see more than a couple hours of snow anywhere, and it would happen overnight, so you probably won't even see it. When you wake up in the morning,
slushy.
If you happen to be in Eastern Mass, it may be gone, or nonetheless it'll be turned to slush. Maybe in Central Mass, you'll see a sort of remnants of some snow and sleet, but
yeah, I mean, it's not one of those things that you plan your whole day around. Maybe give yourself some extra time in the morning to get to work, but outside of that, we've got it pretty easy going into tomorrow.
Yeah, so let's nerd out again. We've heard some good feedback about when we talk about skew T diagrams. This is a model sounding. So just to give you an idea, so those lines that you see, basically the bottom would be the ground level, the surface. All the way up to the top, it's basically you're seeing a vertical profile of the atmosphere. The red line is the temperature line, and the green line is dew point. So this model sounding is for tomorrow morning, early morning, when we would be getting snow. But the interesting point to note is that when we look for good snowstorms, we look where the snow is being formed and produced, and that's in the DGZ, the dendritic growth zone. And so what we want is for a good snowfall to have the green and red lines to be sort of together. We want there to be snowfall forming in that area. And you can see that there's some dry air. They are not together in that area. There's dry air up there.
All right, so the wider the gap is right there, that dew point depression, if we've got the green line far away from the red line, those temperatures, the dew point and the air temp are not the same. So the air is not really saturated right there where we'd like to get maybe some good snow growth in the point where it needs. The reason we call it a skew T, if you look at the numbers on the bottom of the screen there, those are temperatures in Celsius, so that 0 line. And notice like these lines are skewed. That's why we also call it skew T. They're going diagonally. Well, we need to look at the -10 to -20 diagonal lines, and in that zone up in the air aloft, it's a bit dry.
It's not snowing there, right? So the snow is really forming just below the growth zone. As you can see, when the red and green come together, it's just below the ideal area. All this to say that whatever snow does fall, it's not going to probably accumulate very readily. It could be more, it's not going to be those fancy dendrites. It'll probably be some kind of needles or something less, that will accumulate a little bit less.
And then we get an inversion at the surface and it melts right off. If we can get some snow, it just kind of melts off at the surface.
So this is I believe this is 2 hours later, same point, and you can see that in the growth zone, things have tightened up and, the snow production's good. However, and again, look at that, see the 0 at the bottom of the screen and the dotted line that goes up to the right, that's basically above and below freezing. And so by the time we get some good snow formation, it's too warm and it's probably sleeting. So this is what we look at behind the scenes, and this is how we try to formulate our snowfall forecast when it changes over. Just a little taste of what we're looking at. It looks complicated, but in the end, you're really looking for a few key things.
Well, and a nice little plug for us meteorologists. If you're following us locally, if you're watching here right now, again, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're watching this from YouTube. But this is why we say, when there's something going on with the weather app and it just shows one snowflake, and that's all you get. That's all the context you have. We can look behind the scenes here and look at that and say, what do we actually think is going to happen? When do we think it's going to be snow versus rain?
Yeah, the apps are okay for.
Yeah, I use them for like
for some time. Yeah, if it's a summer day and you're wondering like when the thunderstorm rolls in, But on a situation like this where you have different layers of the atmosphere and a lot going on, the apps you need a little bit more. So that's what we're here for.
And that's a whole nother debate.
That's another story. This is our snow map right now. It's not much of one. I think most of the area sees a coating to an inch. Again, this is just after midnight, first few hours, wee hours of the morning on Thursday tonight. But a lot of you inside 495 won't even know it happened. It'll be washed away. I think the best chance of anything sticking around through the morning would be like northern Worcester County, southern New Hampshire. But again, even if you get an inch or two, it's going to be condensed by sleet and rain. Snow really isn't the story here. It's more to do with the ice. And that could be an issue as you're going out in the morning, tomorrow morning. If you're driving out, say, Route 2, 495, a lot of these areas will stay below freezing for a while.
Yeah, and especially, just with the sun, before the sun comes up, when it's dark outside. So I don't know if we've heard of any 2-hour delays, but that might be the only, with the timing of this, it would just be impacting mainly the morning commute.
Right. Wouldn't be shocked if some of those towns that are highlighted in purple on this graphic had some delays for school tomorrow morning.
That'd be helpful, yeah, just to kind of wash things out a little bit better and warm things up a bit and get the sun out. Yeah.
So here's another way to look at it. So the blue areas are above freezing, the purple are below. So this right here is close to 4 a.m. and you'll see it kind of shrink. So by 8 a.m., the only areas left below freezing are in the Worcester area, the Worcester Hills, the Berkshires. Everyone else is ticking above or well above freezing. So an extra hour or two could really help in the morning if you're driving or, again, with the school kids.
That can make a huge difference.
Huge difference. And then, of course, by afternoon, the storm is over. Everybody should be a little bit above freezing because we get some melting. But word of warning, I guess, any water that's left on the ground will refreeze tomorrow night. So if you've got, a sidewalk or your steps and you don't throw the rock salt down and make it a little slippery.
Bridges, overpasses. I had this question. They're like, why is that any more dangerous than any other
Good
surface?
question,
You get the cold air hitting, if it's a bridge, I mean, the cold air is hitting it from multiple different directions, so it's going to freeze much more readily. That's why it can get, you can be driving on the road, everything's just fine. You hit that bridge or the overpass and it starts to get a little slippery.
Yeah, definitely. And then we go into Friday. So thankfully, we get like a one-day
little break.
Yeah,
Yes.
and it comes in perfect timing for Valentine's Day.
Yeah, a lot of people will be out, going to dinner, doing your thing, go lunch. It's going to be dry. We'll have temperatures. I think the main thing is going to be cold, so bundle up, but we shouldn't have any issues as far as roadways or rain, snow, all that good stuff.
All good. I mean, a little bit, it'll be gusty, a little windy, so if you're heading out in the afternoon or evening, those temperatures are actual temperatures. It'll feel a little colder. But I don't think anybody's having any barbecues. You're going to be indoors anyhow, so just, bundle up when you're heading out. But no weather issues. By then, the roads will definitely be dry.
That should be a thing, a Valentine's Day barbecue.
I mean,
It could. Hey, based on how some of the last winters have gone, it's not out of the question.
That's actually right. It's very true. All right, now we dial ahead to the weekend storm, which right now, just to show you, it's well over 3,000 miles away. It's sitting in that purple circle off the west coast. So until that thing comes ashore in the next 24 hours, I would say we're still a little early for like fine details. Like we're not going to be giving you an exact timeline, exact snow amounts when the changeover happens until we get a better sampling of this system. So that will come probably during the day tomorrow and certainly as we get into Friday. But it's still a long ways out, way out there in the Pacific. And so at this point, there are certain things we feel like good about and certain things we need to sort of wait and see. Definitely going to be a longer duration storm. This is not going to be a quick mover like all the rest of them have. Probably will linger really throughout the day Sunday, and it's going to be another mixed precipitation event. It's not going to be like last weekend when it was all snow. So that's kind of what we feel good about. But we're not sure about when the transition happens, when's the worst travel. My guess would be late Saturday night. So still got to work on those fine details, and we'll have those coming up in the next couple of days.
Well, I like that you preface that with looking at how far this storm system is still away. I mean, it hasn't even come ashore yet, as we just saw. So, yeah, there's certainly some things we're going to fine tune, but knowing that it'll be a busy weekend for sure, weather-wise.
So you'll see that snow coming in Saturday. This particular model,
big system too.
Again, don't take this for, take it with a grain of salt. It's still a ways away, as we just said. The timing may be a little off, but in general, we expect by late afternoon, Saturday or evening, the snow comes in. But yeah, look at that. Like this is a lot bigger, a lot juicier than our last few storms.
A lot of moisture to work with here, and it's going to be a lot of people will be impacted by this. Weekend travel. We're heading into a holiday there the day after on President's Day on Monday, so a lot of people are going to be traveling. Wow, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, look at that. So it's by this model, early in the morning on Sunday, it's snowing from Boston to Detroit to Chicago, and probably just transitioning over in New York, rain in Washington. Definitely, if you're traveling, air travel this weekend, I would expect some delays, especially with all the East Coast being involved here. And again, so this model has us warming up, so to speak, into an ice and rain situation by Sunday morning. We'll see the timing on that as we get a little closer, but I do think by eventually on Sunday, we'll get the timing down. It will probably be mainly rain by afternoon. So really messy. I mean, if we get, and this model will just give you a basic idea. This is not an official snow forecast, but something on the 1 to 3, 3 to 6 inch. If you think about getting 1 to 3 or 3 to 6 inches of snow. You throw a little sleet on top. You throw some pretty heavy rain on top. Just going to be one of those heavy, hard to move. Could be a very, very messy weekend for a good 36 hours. Not a fun one, to say the least. And here's our busy 7-day.
Yeah. Wow, busy 7-day forecast. Temperatures going to be a little cooler for next week, as we see. So that'll just continue on with this below average, colder than normal February we've had, which is going to be pretty wild to do for the first time in over 10 years to have a full meteorological winter going below normal. It looks like we're going to continue that trend of cold air into next week. We've flagged both Saturday and Sunday from that storm we just talked about for weather alerts possible. But of course, the next big thing is going to be tomorrow morning, as we talked about slick spots on the roadways with the next weather alert. And there's also winter weather advisories in play for tomorrow. That's pretty much all we have for you for now. I'm going to be on the noon show in about 15 minutes, so make sure you join us on WBZ for the news at noon. And Eric will have more tonight, and you can always follow Terry along on the blog as well. Everyone have a good day.